Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Sweetpea Season 1, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I want to talk about this since it's at the forefront of my mind right now, and I don't want to end up forgetting it. I love that the song they use at the end of the episode is that Billie Eilish song. I love that, because I was just talking about it like 2 weeks ago, because spoilers, it got used in like at the end of Episode 5 of Agatha. Very befitting, even more so in that regard, but obviously it's befitting in this regard too. I feel like that one, I think that's like her first like big single was that song. So I wonder which one actually gets way more play or use, that or Bad Guy. I feel like this song gets used the most, but it's just, once again, funny. Like I said, I was like, oh yeah, people get the licensing to use that one a lot, and it's just funny. Like I said, Agatha's most recent example, because like it was like 2 weeks ago, but I've come across a few TV shows that have used it. Either way, tangents and all that aside, I just wanted to kind of comment on that first. But obviously, we start with Rhiannon kind of feeling good and refreshed. It's like for a moment she kind of let herself forget, because she was she drunk at the time? I can't remember. I don't think she was, but I think it's just kind of like, it's sun shining, it's so good. I'm looking at my skin and I just feel, I think I'm feeling good and well rested. And then I see the blood on my neck, turn around, oh, the tub's full of my bloody clothes. Oh shit, my bloody knife is on the floor. Crap, let me clean stuff up, make sure everything seems okay. She's washing her clothes. 'Cause I was about to say, probably don't want to throw them away or anything, because I'd probably... but washing is probably like the best option. I feel like the typical option is to throw them away, but she just washed them. Had to deal with one night stand dude showing up, which he's like, whoa, did you do something different? You just look kind of different. And he's kind of vibing with Rhiannon now, but he's mainly there because Saren suggested selling their father's business to him, and he's jumping at the opportunity. It's like, yeah, Saren's making a lot of unilateral decisions. I think I talked about it last episode. I'm like, what is her beef with her sister? Why is she just like walking all over her sister? Like, I don't know whether it's like their dad like was closer to Rhiannon than he was Saren, and maybe like Saren has some deep resentment because of that. I don't know. But yeah, her sister's doing a lot. Obviously, like trying to like get Julia to sell their house and stuff like that. Even though Rhiannon's like, I'm staying here, but Saren's like, well, that's kind of a moot point. You'll find somewhere else. It's like, shut up, you know? It's like you're kind of detached from like your dad dying, and you seem tight with Julia. I don't know if they were friends when they were all in school or something. Like we haven't seen. And maybe that's going to be a reveal of like the Saren side of things. Like we see Rhiannon in school with Julia and stuff, but maybe Saren was too. And I don't know. Either way, Home Dude wants to buy the business, and she's not really wanting to deal with that right now because she's worried about cleaning up the crime scene, like boiling the water and like, you know, washing the knife in that regard. But yeah, tries to go to work like it's any other day. The guy beside her, you know, could be a little more nice about like, oh my God, like even if you don't know for sure, you could have just been like, oh, I'm sorry, like I didn't realize I hit you with my bag or something like that. I mean, maybe he didn't notice, maybe, but it's also like she's very meekish and she wouldn't say anything. It's like she's not very confrontational. It's very passive. Once again, I connect a lot with Rhiannon, but they just happened to go by her crime scene where the guy died, and so word is spreading about the murder. And to Rhiannon's benefit, the immediate thought is, Norm's thought was because it was 14 stab wounds that it was multiple people, it's gang related, so you have that. But maybe the argument is like, oh, Norm's an idiot, so there's that. But also the immediate assumption everyone has is, like we got to find him. It's like, luckily statistics are on Rhiannon's side that statistically most killers are men. But I think also the nature of how violent of a crime it is, 14 stabbings, the immediate thought is, oh, it was a man. Just because you typically wouldn't, doesn't mean there haven't been women who've, you know, committed murders that haven't done things brutal, haven't committed brutal murders. But like I said, I think the general assumption is like if a woman's going to kill, it's usually going to be like maybe poisoning or something like that. Nothing as brutal as a stabbing. Once again, it's not an immediate, like it's always like that. But like I said, from a statistic standpoint, just from a general assumption on most people's part, it works to Rhiannon's benefit that they're not even looking for a female. Eventually they probably will, once they're able to narrow it down, bring in maybe like some FBI, well, the British equivalency of like an FBI like analyst or whatever who's able to like diagnose the psychopathy or psychological elements of the killer to be like, no, it's a not less because of the body and landing in the water, and the water is contaminated and full of shit. I think they meant that literally. There is no trace evidence for them to find, so it worked out to Rhiannon's benefit. It wasn't raining too, but it probably that wouldn't have contaminated the evidence as much as like all the stuff that's in that water, because the body was sitting in the water for hours on end. So I do wonder I'm sure the body eventually started floating, because I don't know if like I don't know enough crime stuff to know like, does like after the body starts decaying, did it start to float and bloat and made it float? I don't know, because it's like they ended up finding it like, because that was at night, so it took them a couple hours before they found. Could be like, I can't remember if they said like a passerby found it body. They probably did, but like once again, the body fell into the water, but it probably sank initially, but then eventually rose to the top after a couple hours. But obviously this ends up initially being Jeff and AJ's case. She's the one that's trying to like say like, oh, I have this information on a killer. I don't know if her immediate thought is, well, I can get a leg up on AJ and Jeff by being like, well, I know it was the victim was murdered. He was stabbed. I heard someone on the bus say it. So she was trying to early on just kind of get the leg up on Jeff and AJ, but it's like she hadn't really thought that all through, I'm sure. So eventually she tried to go through Jeff's notes when they found out about the victim and stuff like that, before they found out his name, because Jeff called to say like, oh, I want to talk to Norman. She got Ryan's name, eventually got his address, and wanted to go investigate on her own, saying like, oh, it needs a feminine touch, a woman talking to the mom, and AJ kind of had to inadvertently tattle along because Norman was like, nah, I can't trust this to you, Sweetpea type of thing. So, which Rhiannon is able to talk to AJ about. I mean, once again, no one noticed that she was gone from work for 10 days. No one welcomed her back. But, she was able to be open with AJ about, like, yeah, I lost my dad and my dog. And it's like, yeah, that's a lot. And she's like, she talks about it like, right, I have anger issues. She's like, I get really, really angry sometimes. And then it just kind of comes all out at once. Because she's so used to bottling stuff up because of her meekish personality. And it just kind of like, she just finally like gets the straw that broke the camel back, and unfortunately, home dude pissing on her, talking shit last episode, she popped off on him and killed him. So, and AJ being like, yeah, I get that. I get angry. I became a monster myself when my grandmother died. And she's like, really? He's like, yeah, I kicked a wall and I broke my little pinky toe. And she's like, yep, you're sure a monster. It's like she thought maybe someone else could relate to her. I doubt I'm sure there are people who could relate to you, but AJ was never going to be that person, sure. Because it's like, would you thought you would have an open dialogue of, oh my God, have you ever gotten so angry you murdered a dude? Am I right? It's like, no, you were never going to get that. But yeah, they meet Ryan and they're trying to they meet his parents, and we don't hear the dad say anything. The mom's spinning the tale about like how much of a good person he is. The general thing is you're not supposed to talk ill of the dead, That's just kind of like you just don't do that because the person's not alive to defend himself type of thing, and you won't get their perspective on it. So she has a very like, oh my God, my son was such a great person. Oh, his nephew Logan looked up to him. I thought the story was going to be, oh, let's go talk to Logan. And then Logan's like, I didn't look up to my Uncle Ryan. He was a piece of shit. I thought that's where that story was going to go. We still get to the narrative point of, oh, Ryan was a piece of shit, but it's not the route I thought we were going to go. The dad being super quiet made me wonder, like, what that was about. Was it just like him holding his tongue? Because even the wife was like, oh yeah, like I've never had this much peace and quiet in such a long time. So I'm wondering, did the dad hold his tongue because he knew how much of an asshole his son was, or was he just grieving? Or maybe he's dealing with both sides of things of, man, my son was an asshole, but now he's gone and I miss him. And yeah, you never know what that last conversation between them could have been. He could have been an asshole in that last conversation he had with his dad, so... But yeah, like it turns out there's a restraining order being held against him, which Rhiannon's kind of feeling good about it because it's like, hey, I didn't kill a decent dude. Because early on they're like, yeah, we got to find out the guy had a family, like maybe he had kids or something. Turns out he didn't. But Also finding out, oh, he was good with his nephew looked up to him, that made Rhiannon feel guilty, but now it's like, oh, there's a restraining order against him, he couldn't have been that good of a person. So we meet the guy Dave, who he bullied at work. He's like, it's a little thing here and there. Eventually got up to the point that he basically reported that I had CP on my computer, to the point that it's like, yo, I had to explain to the cops why I have pictures of my children in the bath, so it's like, oh. But now I'm wondering, are we going to find out Home Dude really was that, and Ryan wasn't out of pocket for being an asshole towards him? Because maybe there's always that sad, tragic, comedic irony that he was an asshole for a reason, that who knows? Everyone, that it doesn't justify it, but that there, something being broken in someone, usually there is a cause for it. So maybe there was a reason why he was an asshole. But like using the Dave example, maybe Dave really was kind of a creepy dude and Ryan wasn't out of pocket for doing it. It's kind of like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. You're an asshole, but then like it leads up to like, oh, you did find something truthful, but because you're so much of an asshole. Nothing was found, obviously, because the police investigated and set up the restraining order, so there was validity to it. So I doubt that's the story we're going to go of, like, oh, maybe these people aren't as bad as Rhiannon thinks, but it's probably going to be a thing of, no, they are the see you next Tuesdays that they are believed to be. So, but yeah, finding out about this, and especially because Rhiannon's connecting, because she's like, right, she was bullied herself by someone, and she's trying to make Dave feel okay. It's like, right, he's not here anymore. So AJ's coming from the perspective of, well, Norman asked us to get like a puff piece on, like, to get to know the victim. That was kind of his perspective. But Rhiannon's like, no, we should publish this story because it's the more enticing thing. It's like, he is a murder victim. And it's like, I'm surprised Rhiannon did. She kind of leaned into this, but I would have leaned into it even more of like, right, his asshole nature could be why he got murdered. It could be motive on why the person killed him. Like, maybe he said the wrong thing to the wrong person and got. She didn't really lean into that like I thought she would have. But also, like, Rhiannon's not like a criminal mastermind. She's flying by the seat of her pants, dude. She's like figuring this out as it's dominoing out. This was just more of a personal thing of, I need to find out, like, oh my God, I trying to not relieve but understand herself of, I got to understand who was the person I killed. If they were a good person, that's one thing, but now she killed him and she's like, oh my God, he was an asshole. I'm justified in it. You're not really, but still, just because you're an asshole doesn't mean you deserve to die. I mean, it depends on the levels of, like, if you're like a genocidal maniac, that's not being an asshole. That's just being a monster, which is interesting considering how Rhiannon views herself as one. So, but yeah, Rhiannon kind of brought this to her boss and was able to kind of spin things to be like, oh, no. Oh my God, Jeff told me to go. He's like, no, I told you to go tell Jeff. And she's like, go tell Norman. And she's like, oh my, I didn't hear that part. So, and I think her meekish nature, like, really benefits her in that regard. She's just, I mean, yeah, because, like, no one's going to doubt her really in that moment. So, and multiple times you got to give it up to AJ. He did want to give Rhiannon props every time. And it's like, oh, AJ got credit for something. He's like, actually, that was Rhiannon. And this time it's like, no, that wasn't me. That was Rhiannon. She did the investigating. And I'm sure she appreciates that because she never gets any credit. So Jeff is going to still write up the story, but she will get her credit for it. So it's a step in the right direction. Hell, she even gets invited out for drinks. And she's like, oh, life is on the up and up. Like, I never get invited out to drinks. This is great. This is fantastic. And they go out for karaoke and stuff. And obviously she sings Katy Perry and she kills it. I was not expecting the whole thing with the guy at the bar. His name is Mike, the subtitle said. So I thought that was interesting. I wasn't expecting... Like, I was like, oh, he's just some douchebag at the bar. And then I love the revelation of, oh, he's the guy from the hospital in episode 1. The guy that was distracting the nurse when she was trying to get her attention for, like, her dad. And it's like, maybe that amount of time wasted could have been used to save her dad. I'm sure that's extra reason to be like, oh, this guy sucks. She had just read on the wall of the bathroom, like, oh, Ryan is a see you next Tuesday. And then a bartender calls this guy a see you next Tuesday. And it's like, oh, my God. How serendipitous. And she found her next not victim, asshole needing judgment, I guess would be how you'd phrase that. Once again, she also did not plan that out. You'd think you'd want to plan that a little bit more. It's like, yeah, you found your next victim, but you're jumping on it immediately. You're following the dude, led him into like a junkyard type of place, and then you murked him. I'm like, it also seemed like there was this weird moment where she was like, hey, can you help me find my dog? And he's looking at her. He's kind of drunk, and he's kind of like giving pervy eyes. And I'm like, but then he kind of stopped and was almost like, ugh, no. Like, I think almost like he was just like, it was weird. Like, maybe I'm misinterpreting that. That felt like a moment of, ooh, I'm going to do something. Like, oh, I'm trying to make out with you. But that's also like, you're not pretty enough for me to make out with. It kind of gave that energy. Like, you're too bleh for me to even attempt that. It's like, all right, I hope you find your dog. Because he's almost like, it almost felt like ooh, what are you going to give me if I find your dog type of vibe. And yeah, she murked him. And I was like, is that real? Once again, you didn't check for surveillance cameras? Because it isn't, someone can let me know, isn't like the UK like aren't there surveillance cameras like up the wazoo in the UK? Maybe that's, once again, I'm my North American ignorance, so do forgive me. But like I swear, like, aren't like CCTV cameras like all over the place in like specifically the UK? But I don't know. That might be just like Europe in general, but I feel like it's specifically the UK has them up the wazoo. But like I said, I could be wrong. But like I said, she did not plan that out, and I guess that's just going to be the thing of she's not planning any of this out. She just, once again, flying by the seat of her pants. She gets caught up in her moment, and she sees right. Once again, like all the anger she's got built up, all the anxiety. I mean, hell, the cops just showed up. You felt nervous for a minute until you saw the thing on the wall about Ryan, and you were like, right, no, he was an asshole. I feel justified, so it eased a lot of that nerve. I mean, could we see the ebb and flow of how confident she can be and how like easily she can dive back into her older self? Because when she was at the bar and home dude was waved at her, like one night stand dude, she kind of waved at her, and then she told the bartender, hey, can I get a drink? And it's like, yeah, she spoke up more. So she was feeling herself. She was confident. Home dude came over. It's like, oh, so did you read my proposal about taking over the business and stuff like that? He's like, whenever you get a chance, like, you know, it's all above board, dotted line. Oh, you have to sign on the dotted line. Him being like, oh, it's all above board made me go, oh, it must not be above board. It just seemed, I mean, I guess he's like thinking that's going to be her reservation. Like, oh, this isn't all going to be legitimate. I interpret that as, that seemed a little sus, you saying it that way, but we'll see. But yeah, like, she was just kind of like, right, I don't believe I do trust you, and walked away. And you can tell he's getting that vibe where it is a thing of she was so like needy and wanting his attention, and now that she does it, he wants her. It's like, it's fucked up how people can be like that. It's like, oh, you only want me because I don't really want you. But it's like, yeah, your aura is completely off. You're a lot more confident. But once again, she can go back to being meekish when like she went to her home to clean up the, you know, her home with all the blood and stuff. And then like Julia came there with her colleague Stella, and Julia taking little stabs here and there. But it's also because Rhiannon kind of does some jabbing of her own, but it's mainly like, first it's Julia being like, oh, you know, did something happen last night because of like their run in the previous night? And she's like, no, I didn't really get up to anything at all. She made some comment about, Stella made some comment about Julia, and then like, I forgot what it was, but Rhiannon made some snide comment, and you could tell like it irked Julia. So Julia comes back with a vengeance later on, being like, oh, we should get rid of some of this stuff. And it's like, ooh, a few plugins would help. And it's just like, yeah, once again, maybe there's a reason why you're being an asshole, but, you know, this is why you're going to be at the top of Rhiannon's list. So she's 2 down, got 2 victims. She's got her sights set on Julia, and the question then becomes, I'm curious to see whether she's going to have more victims in between that. Is it going to be people like, because once again, I watched the trailer, so I know, like, I believe she kidnaps Julia at one point in time, so I don't know if the other murders are meant to be like oh, I've got to find my other victims, I've got to get my rush. Or is it more of a situation of, oh, I've got to kill other people to cover up for what I did? I'm also curious, in the long run, this definitely feels like a show of like, either there's going to be a thing of Rhiannon doesn't get away with it. I think she will. I think she's going to pin it all on Julia, and that's going to be the ultimate revenge of, oh, you go to jail for these crimes and no one's going to believe you that you didn't do it. Either she's going to make it seem like serial murdering suicide, like she's going to kill Julia and stage it like a suicide type of situation, but like everyone else that died is because of her, like not less, and tarnishes, and because it feels like that, it seems to be the inkling that I could see this story going down that route. Having never read the book, I'm just guessing at this point in time. We still got like over half the season left. It's what, I mean, I think episode 3 comes out today. So we got like half the season left after. So I'm so curious to see where all this goes. Whether she immediately, I mean, maybe Rhiannon kind of learns from all this and is like, right, I'm gonna plan out how I'm gonna approach Julia. But also, like I said, these other relationships and dynamics, how that's going to play out. Obviously, she's going to take it. Once again, I made the comparison to the TV show Obituary, which has a somewhat similar premise of like, oh, you write obituaries for people. It's kind of her job at this newspaper, and she kills people and uses that as work. Rhiannon's kind of doing a similar thing. But it's like, yeah, I'm using my victims as means of work. That's why I'm wondering how many other victims will there be, even though Julia seems to be like the number one on your list you want to kill. So do you work your way up to her? Do you jump to that immediately and, like I said, kill people to cover your tracks, or what? I'm curious to find out what she finds out about Mike next episode, or potentially like, oh, this next victim, let's dig deep into him and find out how much of an ass. Well, she saw how much of an asshole he is, but maybe she'll find out he's more of an asshole. Once again, Ryan had a mom and a dad and a nephew, but he didn't have kids. Maybe Mike did, so that might make you feel a little worse. But then you're like, no, he was a douchebag. He needed to go. Once again, you have to do whatever you can to justify and live with what you've done. So you have to justify in your own mind. Not saying it's right, and just someone being an asshole doesn't justify that, but still. So it's going to be interesting to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.